Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service. This morning we will meditate 2 minutes. After the meditation, we have a special guest, Venerable Sanata Vihari. He is going to give a Dhamma talk. Right now, I would like to invite Subodha to lead the loving kindness meditation.
All right, let's get into a comfortable position. Close our eyes. And take 3 long, deep breaths. And now, let us develop thoughts of goodwill, loving kindness, metta, beginning with ourselves. This is a sincere wish, a wholesome desire for our true and lasting happiness. We might think to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May I live with a heart and mind unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May I look after myself with ease. And then we extend our goodwill, our loving kindness towards our loved ones, our family, our friends, our mentors, teachers, and guides, those that we love, those that we admire, those that we respect. May they also be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And then we extend our goodwill, our loving kindness to our acquaintances, those that we like but don't know so well. May they also be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And then we extend our goodwill, our loving kindness towards those we have difficulty getting along with, those we have difficulty admiring or respecting, even those that may call us enemy. May they also be happy, peaceful, free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May they live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May they look after themselves with ease. And so it is in this spirit of admirable friendship with all beings that we extend our metta, our loving kindness, our goodwill in all directions, in front of us, behind us, to the right and left, above and below, outward into infinity, to all sentient beings everywhere. May we all be happy. May we all be peaceful. May we all be free from stress and pain, free from suffering. May we all live with hearts and minds unburdened by greed, by aversion, by delusion. May we all always look after ourselves with ease. And so now, with our hearts and minds uplifted with the metta that we have cultivated, let us now turn our attention to the breath, bringing mindfulness to the fore, ardent, alert, setting aside greed and distress with reference to the world. We become sensitive to the breath coming in and the breath going out, sensitive to the quality of the breath, whether the breath be long or short, deep or shallow. And we allow the breath to become comfortable, allow the breath to come in and out in a way that is gratifying, easeful. We might ask ourselves what kind of breathing feels especially good right now, and see how the body responds. Allow the breath to become comfortable so that it becomes a stable foundation for your present moment awareness, a broad yet centered awareness around the breath, using the breath to connect body, heart, and mind. Whatever thoughts of the past that may arise or thoughts of the future, set them aside, let them go. Whatever anxieties or fantasies, worries, daydreams, the same. Bring your thoughts right here and right now to the present moment and this breath as it comes in and goes out. Establishing yourself in mental seclusion, bodily seclusion. Letting all else fade away. Staying stable, alert, mindful, like a steady flame. Let us continue cultivating our minds in this way. This mindfulness of breathing, this skillful activity, let it become our nourishment as we practice together in silence. Please continue meditating in this way until you hear the bell.
So very good. Now time for the Dhamma talk. Our speaker today, Venerable Sanata Vihari. He used to come here and give a Dhamma talk few times a year. I think it's first time this year, correct? Or
I don't remember about that. I think so. If I wasn't here
it's the
in
first
March.
time, yes, in this year. Last other years he used to come here and give a Dhamma talk. Anyway, thank you very much taking our invitation and coming here today, because I know you are very busy monks right now, very famous. He's saying he's studying online also right now in Sri Lanka with one Sri Lankan university. So anyway, thank you so much, and we all are happy to see you. Aravan, you can start your Dhamma talk right now.
First and foremost, I'm paying my respects to the local Hamdru, the chief monk here, and with his permission and the permission of the other venerables in attendance, I'd like to give a Dhamma talk today. And I'll start off by paying my respects to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I'm so happy to be here again, Bante. I always like to share that I grew up down the street from here as a little boy. And then once again, when my mom moved back here when I was a teenager, but up on 4th and Catalina. So it's always like a homecoming, especially these last 2 years that I've been even gone from LA and from the United States most of the time, most of the year. It's really nice to come back here and see how things have changed and how things, a lot of things, some things that I wish would change have not changed. That's when I grew up here, yes. I usually don't plan these Dhamma talks. I like them just to spontaneously occur, like the verses in the suttas. Yeah, but I got a request from a friend, so I also do take requests, but I don't have like a hotline where you can call and put in your request. So you have to catch me. They wanted me to talk about my travels. And I think this is a very important theme, especially when we look at it from the monastic tradition, which is a traveling tradition. You know? We have this word that we use, monks in English, right? Or a monastery. It's okay. It's an okay kind of idea to kind of convey what we are. But you know, during the time of the Buddha and very early on, in the first couple hundred years, monks were not staying in one place for a long time, right? Now when we think of monks, we think about like monks in the forest, monks in the mountains, and they're separated from everyone else, right? They have the temple walls, the doors are closed, they don't talk, they're, you know, completely isolated. That happened to some degree during the time of the Buddha, to some degree, but not to the extreme that we think about, like Western monks, Catholic monks, or other types of monks. The word for Buddhist monks in Pali and Sanskrit is bhikkhu or bhikshu. It means mendicant, someone who goes on alms round, right? How will you get alms if you live on the top of the mountain? It's going to be very difficult for you to get food if you live away from people. So the Buddha created this symbiotic relationship between the monastics, the monks, and the people, in which the monks, for the most part, you know, 90% of the time, have to come out of the forest, have to come out of the mountains, have to come out of the monastery every day to walk into the town, sometimes for many hours, get the food and go back. Right? There's that relationship. The people support the monks physically, and the monks support the lay people with teachings spiritually, caring for them. Right? So monks are not, the word monk comes from the Latin mono, which means one, by oneself, alone. But that's not how Buddhist monks live. Buddhist monks live in union, together, sangha, in a community. We're not separated. There's the bhikkhu sangha, which is the sangha of monks, monastics, nuns, and monks. There's also the larger sangha, which is also upasika, upasaka, men and women, lay followers of the Buddha. Right? So it's a communal practice. We may not live and stay in the same room, stay in the same house, stay in the same place, but it requires daily interactions. You might think that you've progressed a lot. You might think that you're very enlightened. Just wait until you come across someone who's being a jerk. Right? Just wait until someone cuts you off. Wait until you ride the train like I did today and see what's going on down there and these kind of things, you know? Wait until you go to Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, right? All of that you practice, all that serenity, all that spirituality, right, is walking a tightrope. So the daily Buddhist practice is to, engage. There are many accounts of the monks going into the towns and being tempted. The monks see a very beautiful person and they start getting tempted. The nuns see a very beautiful person, they start getting tempted. They might see a big celebration going on in the town. They're playing drums, they're playing the flute. They're like, oh, where's the party? I should go back to the party, right? But then they practice indriya samvara, right? Protecting their senses. That's why when monks have the bowl in their hand, they're not supposed to look around. They're not even really supposed to talk to you. When monks are in alms round, they're like this. And the food just goes in the bowl, and you're not supposed to be looking or even supposed to say thank you. Right? You can give them a blessing like Sukhi Hotu, may you be well. So, the original context for the monastic order and for the lay people was this kind of interaction where the monks are coming in and out all the time. And, nowadays, that doesn't really happen. Monks are mostly just hidden inside their monasteries, especially in the West, especially in the US, because it's such a car culture, right? Like you need to have a car to get around. And even if monks are out there, you don't see them because they're in their car, right? You just see a bald-headed person in their car. You might think, oh man, that's a homie. Like, I don't want to look over there. You might think that's a gangbanger. You might confuse him, especially if he's like, a little South Indian. You might confuse him for a homie. So you don't know if it's a monk or not, right? You don't have those interactions even if monks are driving around. So I've made an effort ever since I was a novice to walk the streets, to go out there. And to be honest, I don't get much interactions. Most people ignore me. Some people are kind of mean to me, especially people that are very dogmatic about their religious views. It happened today on the walk over here. Someone went out of their way and they pulled over to bother me. Those kind of things happen, right? But that's also part of the practice, right? During the time of the Buddha, many monks were challenged by Brahmins, by other ascetics, by lay people. The monks at that time were very smart. They didn't say anything. They stayed quiet and they would go to the Buddha and, this person said this, how should I answer? And they would get the answer from the Buddha. Noble silence is very important, not to react, to keep that equanimity, to keep that khanti, that patience, to keep that forbearance, right? Not to be affected by what's going on around. So I'm trying to kind of give you a map about the Buddhist practice and where we are now. One beautiful thing I like about going to places that are less car-centric and they're more like about walking around or there's more public transportation or in a traditional Buddhist country is that you just go out, You go out there and you have, the closest thing that we can have to something similar during the time of the Buddha. And people interact with you that way. I catch myself walking in Vietnam and Cambodia, and I can feel like I'm in the suttas, right? And people come up to me, and police officers, regular people, other monastics, people from other religions, which I notice are a lot friendlier over there than here. I don't know, for some reason in the US or in the West, a little bit more aggressive, but in Asia it doesn't seem to be, people are not that uptight about their differences in religious views, at least in the places that I've been. You have these interactions with people, and most of the time I've been spending in Vietnam. And as an American, former military member, it's a delicate, complex situation that you find yourself in when you go to Vietnam, right? And people know that you were in the military. You tell them you were in the military, right? There's a little tension, a little awkwardness, but luckily enough, most Vietnamese people have moved beyond it. You know, they're not really, they're worried about their own well-being right now in this moment and trying to make their country a better place and not trying to dwell in the past and what happened in the past. But even with that said, you know, one of the most powerful things that I found in Vietnam is the openness of mind, open-mindedness. The 2.5 years ago when I first went to Vietnam, I didn't know what to expect, you know. According to the statistics, Vietnam is like 60-70% like atheists, and the biggest religion is what they call like folk traditions, right? But when you land there, you notice that that's not the case, actually. I would say like 40 or 50% people are Buddhist. I think there's some other things going on that they don't want those numbers to come out like that. But that's the way it is when you actually get there, right? And I was surprised when I went to these Mahayana temples to see Arahant Sivali. Oh, there's Arahant Sivali. And not only did they have like Amitabha Buddha, but also Sakyamuni Buddha was there, like in the Thai statue or Sri Lankan or Burmese style. I saw a lot of Theravada elements there, right? And then I would see a lot of Vajrayana, what nowadays people call Tibetan Buddhism, right? And I would even see, nowadays it's very popular for monks from like Nepal, Bhutan, and India to come, Vajrayana practitioners, monastics, to come give teachings at the Pure Land schools. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I don't really see that happening in the West. I definitely don't see it happening in Cambodia or the little bit of time that I was in Sri Lanka that much, or for my friends that are in Thailand that visit every year. I don't see that happening. But in Vietnam, there was this kind of beautiful coming together of all the traditions and just focusing on the Dhamma. That was such a nice thing, and being welcome all the time, asking to stay, to eat, you know, inviting me on trips to other temples to take me on pilgrimage all over Vietnam. It was such a beautiful thing. Take into account that all of this is happening with a huge language barrier, right? Like, my Vietnamese now is survival Vietnamese. In the past was no Vietnamese, right? So I'm just trying to figure things out, hand gestures, using a little bit of Pali and Sanskrit to talk about some things. For the monks that do know Pali or Sanskrit, like half of them don't know even Pali or Sanskrit, so it's very difficult to communicate with these monks. But one beautiful thing is once you start staying at the temple, the practice, the Dhamma lifestyle is the same. You don't need to communicate. It's kind of like a flock of birds, right? Or a group of ants, or a group of bees, a colony of bees. You're just kind of intuitive, you feel it, right? One day they were going to do the reciting of the Patimokkha at a Mahayana temple, the Patimoksha, and no one told me. But I saw how things were monks were kind of setting up. I went to my room. I went to go get my double robe, the one you put on the shoulder. And the monk comes knocking on my door to ask me to go. And he says, Patimokkha, because he knows a little Pali. And then he saw me with it. He goes, you know? I said, oh yeah, I figured what you guys are doing, there's nothing else that can be happening. And he's like, oh, that's very good. A lot of the Dhamma is like this. A lot of the Dhamma is just kind of being very observant, being attuned with what's happening around you. You know? That's why I like this word samma. Right? Samma means to like unite, hold, togetherness, wholeness. Usually it's translated as correct or right. It does mean that. You know, when something's properly put together, then it's right. It's the right way. When you assemble all the parts from your IKEA furniture in the way that it's supposed to be, then it's right. You can get it wrong if it's not made the way it's supposed to be, if it's not whole. But to me, this essence of samma really means, that everyone is working together. All the aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path are working together. That's what makes it samma, right? It's not just about right or wrong. It's not a dogmatic position about this is the absolute truth and all other truths are irrelevant or they're bad or they're evil. It's about how can we interact together? How can we come into a mutual, beneficial, wholesome state in our everyday interactions? And I really found that to be the case in my travels in Vietnam and Cambodia also. I know even less Khmer. Khmer is very difficult. And even the Pali is pronounced differently. So even though they know more Pali, it was hard to communicate. I had to figure out, what word they were saying, because they would put a different tone or emphasis on certain words. But even then, just feeling it out, feeling all of it out, just even the people on the streets. About 2.5 years ago, I walked over 210 miles from Angkor Wat to the capital of Cambodia, Phnom Penh, with my bowl. That's it, just my bowl. I had like a towel. I had sunscreen, and that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it, and I just walked. I didn't have to know anything. All around the road, when people saw me, we already understood. They would come up, try to put food in my bowl if it was before 12 o'clock. The rest of the day, they were trying to offer me energy drinks. I said, no, I'm not going to take any energy drinks. But they would also offer me water and soft drinks and a lot of coffee, like really strong coffee, like Vietnamese coffee. So you only need like one of those for the rest of the day. But I was drinking maybe like 4 or 5 of them, which I actually needed, because it was like, just imagine this hot but like 100% humidity, right? You take a shower and within 2 or 3 minutes you're already wet again. And then there's mosquitoes everywhere and all that kind of stuff. But the important part about that journey was the closeness I felt with every interaction that I had with people. It felt very sincere, very authentic. And it also took me back to the time of the Buddha. You know how monastics were practicing that time. The Buddha just had to survive with whatever people gave him. And in the beginning, people didn't know who the Buddha was. They just saw him as any other monk. Just like you might see any religious person walking down the street. You don't know them. You just kind of, whatever. So there was times where the Buddha didn't get any food. Right? There was times where the Buddha was very sick. He didn't have any medicine. The Buddha had dysentery. And there was sometimes even near the end of his life where he was like pooping blood and stuff like that. He had a very difficult time. He didn't have everything under the perfect conditions. Sometimes we make the mistake to think, well, if I was there during the time of the Buddha, if I lived in the monastery, if I was a monk, things will be very nice. But I know one of our friends here knows that's not true, right? He also stayed some time in a monastery. It's not true. There's so many problems in the monastery. There were so many problems during the time of the Buddha. Even if you were next to the Buddha, you would have to go through the same things. You most likely ate the same food. So if the Buddha got dysentery, guess what? You're also getting dysentery. Right? There's no escape from it. They talk about all these like bugs biting them. Arahant Sariputta, which was the top disciple of the Buddha, his brother died right in front of him from getting bitten. He got poisoned and then he died right in front of him. It was very dangerous. Monks were getting run over by elephants, by cows. I got chased in Cambodia by dogs a couple times. And as monks, you're not allowed to run. So you like power walking. And the dogs are like going to your heels like this. But one time, one temple dog followed us for an hour. And other dogs were coming to like bother us, and the dog would keep them away. Until we got to the town, and then he let us go, and then he went back to the temple on his own. I think that every day he goes on alms round with the monks. So he knows the way to the town, and then he goes back. So it was very nice, but we were leaving at 5:30 in the morning. So it was like a very unusual time for the dog, but the dog already knew the routine. Cows, they're very cute. They look very docile, but they could also be very aggressive if for no reason. For no reason, cows can be very aggressive. The roads in Cambodia are not as well developed. There was no sidewalk. I'm walking along the road and there's like trailers passing by. There's people driving like really fast, especially government officials. They like fly by. They have all their sirens on and they're like easily going 100 miles an hour down the highway. So it's not a safe place to be walking alongside the road. And guess what? There's no toilets. on the side of the road. And in many places, there's no toilets either, even in a house. There's just like a hole somewhere out there. And you have to squat. And for 2 of the days, on the second day and third day, the other monk who was walking with me, we had diarrhea because of some food that we got in some little village, fishing village. So we had to stop, like every hour. And we have to drink extra water because everything's coming out of us all the time. So you just like go down into a little field and you just squat there. Make sure you don't get anything on your robe. But guess what? You're going to get some splashes on your feet. You can't help that. But that is what would happen during the time of the Buddha. I'm not sharing these things because like they're funny only or because I want to make myself look like a very ascetic monk or anything like that. But this was just business as usual during the time of the Buddha. Business as usual. And it's not like that now, Now, it's good that we have better sanitation, more reliable sources of medicine and food and water. But there's a temptation to get too comfortable. Get too comfortable in these things. We're not looking to bring unnecessary pain into our lives. But if in the pursuit of our spiritual practices, discomfort arises and difficulty arises, then we shouldn't run away from it. That's part of daily life, right? There's nothing more spiritual, extra spiritual, something that's going to help you become more wise, more enlightened by hiding from the world. If anything, you fall into delusion, a false sense of security, a false sense of achievement. You want to have a realistic way of seeing things. See things as they are, right? Understand things as they are. At the highest level, yatha bhuta jnana dasana. Very advanced, that level. But at least understand, like the everyday sufferings that people are going through. I think it's very important for spiritual practitioners and monastics to be in touch with what's happening in the world, not to turn a blind eye to the riots and other things that are happening here, like taking people away without their consent and things like that. And we shouldn't hide from it. We shouldn't try to turn a blind eye. When I was here, where was it? Down the street that way. My brother was 11 years old, he got stabbed. When he was 12 years old, he got shot. When he was 13 years old, he was involved in a murder. Just right here down the street, right? It doesn't happen as often. It is still happening. Those things are still happening here. Just a few weeks ago at North Hollywood Station, someone was stabbed. But since we have cars, right? Since monastics have cars and you have cars, most of you, we don't see those things. We're disconnected from the real life, from real world practice. And what happens when we disconnect ourselves so much? We create an aversion towards regular life. We create an aversion towards society, towards regular people. We might see them as less. We might see them as like they're corrupting our spiritual practice. I can't be with them. That's a form of conceit, spiritual conceit, or spiritual elitism that can happen in a person who's not aware of these things that are happening to them. Right? We shouldn't try to put ourselves in those situations, but if in the course of our daily activities something arises, we should be willing to engage. Right? Just like if you were to sit here with us in meditation with your legs crossed, it's not about denying the pain in your knee. It's not about turning a blind eye to the pain in your knee. It's not about always wanting to feel good and changing your posture, because meditation always has to feel good. It can only feel good. It's not about that. It's about understanding it, understanding what's happening right now, understanding the pain, understanding the discomfort, also understanding the happiness, the joy too. It works both ways. Understanding what's happening, right? Understanding the awkwardness of sitting in a room with other people. Now we completely bypass that because we all get in our phones. Before, when we used to go to the doctor, maybe you'd get a magazine and everyone's just kind of like awkward, looking around. They don't know what to do. But now, we don't know how to engage with people. We just get on our phones. We don't know how to deal with that awkwardness of being in an elevator. Even in the elevators, right? Everyone gets into the elevator, everyone gets on their phone. They completely avoid that awkwardness of being in a small contained room with strangers. That's our bypass now. Our bypass mechanism is just to get on our phone. Anything we don't like, even when there's crazy violence, something disgusting's happening, we get on our phone to like live stream it or take pictures. Why? It creates a barrier between us. Right? Because you're no longer witnessing it with your own eyes. Now you're witnessing through the lens. It's being filtered. That removes you a degree from what's actually happening. There's a place for that, right? For witnessing and sharing with the world all the injustices and suffering that's happening. That's true. There's a place for that. But that, to me, has kind of seemed like to be misused now. And we use the phone as a shield for everything, to disconnect from people. Right? There's the obvious ways, but there's this kind of not obvious way that I just shared with you. About instead of witnessing what's there, you get your phone out and you start recording and you start taking pictures. We separate ourselves from other people's suffering. And there's where a lot of like the lack of empathy and compassion and action in the world comes from. Inaction comes from creating separation. Right? Those people over there, that country, they're different. Their religion is different. Their history is different. They look different. The more we create barriers, the further we get away. Right? For the monastics, the more we separate from the people, the less we walk the streets, the less we connect with them, the less we know the suffering that happens every day on the streets, we become more separated. And we become like precious monastics, very precious. I need to have my nice cushion. I need to have my nice meal. I need to have all these nice things. People need to respect me. I'm a monk. I've been a monk for so many years. People should bow to me. People should treat me nice. People should do all these things. Especially if you're in Asia all the time, people treat you like a prince or a god. And you come here and you're treated like, a 5150. You know what that means? 5150 is the code for people who are insane and they get taken to the hospital or to jail. That's how you get treated. Right? And if you're not out there walking, you don't know. That's one of the things I like about this temple. You can just walk around the corner and you will be humbled really quick as a monk. Right? Or you might be confused for a gang member, at times, if they just see your head and they don't pay attention to the rest of you. Or if you're wearing like a sweater or a coat, you can end up in a very awkward situation. You might get robbed here. Something might happen. Someone might break in. People have tried to break into our North Hollywood temple in the past. One time a man came with like a big metal chain on his hand and started trying to break the glass to get inside. So we've had all kinds of weird situations. We had a group of professional thieves from Europe, certain type of people that came while we were there and tried to rob the place while we were there. They're trying to be discreet, but luckily enough at the temple that I was at, we have no cash. We don't keep anything. So they could have tore up the whole place. They were looking while I was there. They were trying to distract me, but I knew there was nothing to steal, so I just let them look around. At the end, they ended up putting like $30 in the donation box. So we took something from them instead of them taking something from us. They did kind of mess up one of our doorknobs, so maybe they felt bad. That was the replacement money for one of the doorknobs. But all of this, I'm just trying to hook the Dharma into like regular life. I'm trying to create a connection between you and me and the other monastics and what spiritual practice is supposed to be. Because nowadays, spiritual practice is like getting a certificate, going on retreat, feeling good, treating yourself, feeling nice about yourself. Nothing should be bad. Nothing should bother me. Right? Everyone wants to be like a prince or a princess on retreat. They want their own room. They want their nice bed. They want their own private bathroom. Everyone's become so precious in their spiritual practice. Practice according to where you're at. That's a very important rule about the streets. Those of you who grew up in a difficult place, under difficult situations, and it's in a song too. It's not about where you're from. It's where you're at. It doesn't matter where you're from. High society, low society, middle society. It doesn't matter if you're the hardest homie in your neighborhood. You go somewhere else, you need to adapt to that place. Because you will get checked, you will get humbled real quick. You need to practice according to those conditions. So, whatever you think practice should be like, put that to the side. Practice should be like where you're at right now. This where you're at right now, the heat, maybe feeling bored, maybe feeling hungry or thirsty, this is the time for you to practice. This is the best practice. The other practice when you make everything nice is like training wheel practice. When you're first learning how to ride a bicycle. But all of you, except for him, are adults. Let's take the training wheels off. Maybe you've had a very difficult life and some things are difficult for you. And in those dimensions of your life, please protect yourself and be very careful. But in the other parts, try to challenge yourself. Try to challenge yourself to move beyond, right? Going to grad school and studying psychotherapy to be a marriage family licensed therapist, and also just finishing my 2-year training as a Buddhist chaplain. There's a lot of misunderstandings about our pain and our suffering and our traumas or negative experiences, like it's something that we need to hold on to for the rest of our lives. Like we need it. We need to keep that forever, and we need to let everyone know. And we use that as a crutch, or we might use it as something that stops us from moving forward. Those things can be a learning, and they can help you grow if you use them skillfully. But the point of it is to move forward. I remember one of my supervisor over here in South LA. I did my training in South Central as a therapist with people who were just coming out of jail or the hospital, or people who were homeless. And my supervisor said, "We want our clients to graduate." There's no certificate, there's no graduation. What does she mean by that? We want people to progress. We don't want them to get stuck in the state that they're at. We're here to help them progress in whichever way that looks for them, and support them in their growth. So also in the Dhamma, we want you to progress. Whatever it is, wherever you're at in your own spiritual practice, you need to try to move towards progressing. And maybe you can't do it on your own. Many of us can't. Find a friend, find a community, find a church, find a temple, Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever, find a skating group, something. You need to find a way to go beyond our suffering. That is the whole point of Buddhism. There is suffering, there's a cause for suffering, there's the cause of suffering, there is freedom from suffering. That's the good news. That's the gospel of the Buddha, to use, more theological kind of talking. Freedom from suffering is what Buddhism is all about, and the path, the steps you need to take, patipada, the steps you need to take towards freedom, right? That's the important thing. So, just to review before I finish today, I just wanted to kind of tell you how to use the Dhamma in your everyday life, using some of the examples in my own life as a Buddhist practitioner, how I try to engage with people all the time, wherever I go, and I try to isolate myself and be away from the people. The Buddha said that the most important type of isolation or protection is the mental, not the physical, right? Staying away from all the bad things in the world outside is not that important, but staying away from greed, hatred, delusion in your mind, from all the corruptions, that is the real ascetic. That is the real spiritual person, That's the real restraint, if you can do that. If you're doing it outside, sometimes it can be useful, sometimes it can be bypassing. You don't really know. And we're very good at deceiving ourselves and lying to ourselves, because we always want comfort and we don't want pain, as the Buddha also said. So just think about these things, let them marinate, right? I'm just here sharing with my life experience about my travels and some things that the Buddha shared with us. Yeah, I didn't leave that much time for questions, but I'd like to leave 5 minutes at least. If we can do 5 minutes of questions. I talked a lot more than I usually do today, and we started a little bit later too. So yes, if you have any questions or any comments or anything that you wanted to share, now is the time. Yes, in the back.
How do we engage in it as a great person, and how do we make sure we're safe too? Because sometimes things get out of hand, and what does that mean? I get it from to engaging in what we notice suffering around us.
That's a very good and practical question. So to no surprise, the first step that we need to do is become aware. Not only aware of what's happening outside, But because what happens outside is not independent of what happens inside. So when we see some injustice, some suffering outside, we also need to check in with ourselves. See what's going on in our mind, see how we feel about it, see how disturbed we are or not disturbed. Because we can go two extremes. We can let ourselves be consumed by it and be overwhelmed, or we can close ourselves off, right? And not care, become indifferent. Both of these are not skillful. So something happens, we check in with ourselves. How is my mind? Am I in a good state? How do I feel? Am I feeling overwhelmed or not? You check in. Is there anger in me? Is there fear in me? Is there jealousy? Right? Is there greed in me? Check in with yourself. Understand it. There might be loving kindness in your heart. There might be compassion. And if you notice, wow, something's happening and there's so much goodwill, so much compassion for this person. Actually, this way of feeling, this way of thinking is good. Perhaps I can act on it if the conditions are safe, right? I can act on it. There's some times where we might have good intentions to help and we feel good about it and we're not overwhelmed, but the conditions are not there. You cannot do it. And in those moments, we need to practice the hardest practice. The Buddha said that the hardest practice is the practice of patience. Kanti paramam tapotihika. In India and many other religions, they practice doing very difficult practices, like keeping their arm up for the rest of their lives, laying down on spikes, walking around naked all day, all these kind of very painful things. But the Buddha said, out of all these spiritual practices, out of all these tapas, the most difficult one is to be patient. Imagine you see some injustice, something horrible, and you can't do anything. That is very difficult. But we're aware of it, right? We check in with ourselves. We acknowledge it. Yes, this is happening to me. Then whatever would work for you. Sometimes maybe talking to a friend, trying to help someone else, trying to prevent those type of situations in the future, right? We don't all have to go out there and fight directly. We can fight indirectly, right? We can do something in a different way. We can advocate, just saying things, right? Sharing the information. So there's two very important aspects in the practice of mindfulness, in Buddhist practice. One is to be mindful of what's happening, whether inside, internally, or externally. In the Satipatthana Sutta, it says this, on the Mindfulness Sutta. Another thing is to understand, sati sampajana, understand what's present. Is this anger in me, right? Is this jealousy in me? Is this fear? Is this sadness in me? Is this loving kindness? Is this compassion? Is this joy? Is this tranquility in me? Right? Those two steps are very powerful. And then also Dhamma vichaya. Dhamma vichaya means to know whether what's present is good or bad, skillful or unskillful. Right? Once you're aware, you understand, and you see that it is beneficial, that it is good, that it is kusala, go ahead. Right? If it's safe, go ahead and do it. But I would say that in my personal experience, a lot of the times where I'm confronted with other people suffering, there isn't much I can do. Like 90% of the time. And at that moment, the best I can do is try to protect myself. Protect myself because I don't think that other person would want me to commiserate or to beat myself up over it, right? We're trying to alleviate suffering, not to create more. Before there's one person unnecessarily suffering, if we're not careful, then we can make two persons unnecessarily suffering. And if I go home, my friends and family, and they see me like that, they care about me. They don't want to see me bad. Then now there's 3 or 4 or 5 people, and it becomes like a plague that goes around. That doesn't mean that we should shut down to our bad feelings and not share anything, but we should work with them, right? Work with them. So unfortunately, I don't have good news. Most of the time, it's just going to be dukkha. It's going to be very painful. Here and then here. Yes.
Oh yeah, I think one day touch on something I was going to ask, but given the state of things happening in the country right now, how is the practice of Buddhism? What would be the best thing like the Buddha would have? The things going on that don't necessarily agree with that are affecting you politically.
Well, the Buddha peacefully protested twice, 2 different wars. One he directly intervened in when there was a water dispute between 2 farmers that were at the borders of a kingdom. And then they started fighting, their family started fighting, their friends started fighting, everyone from the villages came. This happening at a border town. Then people ran to their kings and started saying that there was an invasion. The kings got their armies ready. Someone told the Buddha that was about to happen, there was a war about to break out, and he went right into the middle of it. He went into the middle of it, and he asked both of the kings, do you know why this started? No. The messenger told me. They went to the messenger. Do you know why this started? No. That people from the village told me. They went to the people from the village. No, we don't know. It's because these people are friends. They went to the friends. They went to the family members. Finally, they got to the two people who started the fight. And it was about like an irrigation channel, which way the water was going to flow, right? And almost like these two kingdoms are going to go to war over it. But the Buddha put his life on the line. You know, he went there to confront that in a very kind of a peaceful, understanding kind of way through nonviolence. Another time is when they tried to, what they did actually, massacre his whole family. There was an invading army that was going to come into the Sakyan kingdom, and he sat in the middle of the road. You know how nowadays people like do these kind of like ecological protests, and like they block a road? The Buddha did the same thing. He sat in the middle of the road. And the king came with his army, and he says, oh, Bhante, the Buddha, you know, why are you sitting under the hot sun? There's some tree over there. You should sit over there. And the Buddha said, there's no better shade than the shade of one's own family. So the king understood that he was trying to protect his family. The Buddha was trying to protect his family. So we have many examples, right, where the Buddha confronted injustice. Maybe not in the way that we think it should be confronted, but he didn't turn a blind eye to it. There's so many stories about bad things happening during the time of the Buddha, and he went there, right? He helped redeem a mass murderer, Angulimala, right? The king was going to go to kill him with his army. And the Buddha went to go save probably the most feared person at that time. How many of us would put our lives on the line to save a mass murderer, a serial killer? Raise your hand if you would be willing to put yourself in front of the line to save someone like that, especially if they killed children. We don't know who Angulimala killed. He killed women, he killed children, innocent people, old people, all kinds. Would you be willing to risk your life for someone else like that? The Buddha did that, right? We're not the Buddha, so we qualify it with that, right? But we definitely know that doing nothing, right, is not an act. It's not. Buddhist compassion comes from the word karuna, which comes from kar. Kar means to do, right? So compassion in Buddhism is active, right? It's not like feeling bad for people, like pity. Oh yeah, that sucks. Oh no, pobrecito. You know, like no, it's not that. You know, compassion means action, right? Yes.
Good morning. So, our boundaries in importance of like as a recovered drug addict, now between the month or now, I definitely stay away from areas where I used to pick up people that I would say hello, but I won't stop and talk to them. And then right now, like my dad just came in line because I love my dad very much, but when I went to the doctors, suffered a stroke, and my dad has been a beautiful dad, but because of some of the things that I've done to him, he's just very disconnected from me. I'll go to the house, but it's hard for me to sit there and hear talk to everybody else, and I'm just like, I don't want to I can't stay there, you know. I have to just, I go hang out with my mom, or go feed the chickens, but it's hard for me. That's something that I caught myself doing, like, you know, I'll be on my phone, just not just sit there and just be there with my dad and enjoy his show, and that's something that I got to work on. And then I just want to share a creative mantra that a friend with a Sikh and sent it to me. I try to read this every day. I have a lot of memories, so I can't remember say it by word, but it says, thank you God for this beautiful life, and continue to grow, heal, love, and serve others to gain with me. Breathe long and deep before you speak. Silence of breath is pranayama. One teacher in every situation in life. If I don't see God in all of you, I don't see God at all. Blessings to my God, my guru, you. I have to see God in all of you. So I try to see God in everybody, or just try to find something beautiful in them. And but it is hard. It's hard to. It's normally when the rat race, you know, and I just hit I hit the fence and scraped my car because I'm always in my journey. But yeah, that's by the way, I know Dante personally from his brother, who I met first, his airborne brother, and I want to thank you for being in my life, and I love you.
Thank you. Yeah, we met for the first time in Tijuana, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with the Deported Veterans Project. Yes, like that. Definitely, having boundaries is important. Monks, we have 227 boundaries. So we know the importance of boundaries, right? It's very important to have boundaries. And at the same time, I think it's important to maybe change the way that we think about success or good relationships, right? When I first became a Buddhist monk and started living within the Sri Lankan community, I thought that like good family relationships between mom and dad and brothers and sisters looked a certain way, according to my own Western Mexican American way. And I didn't see Sri Lankan or Bangladeshi people or Thai people treat their children like that, or brothers and sisters treat, and I was very confused. But over the years, I've got to see, well, they just show love differently, right? And we can show love differently. So maybe your dad, won't accept, or you can't convey it that way, but maybe we can do it in a different way. This is a time to be curious and to explore. Maybe there's some other way. Many of my Asian friends tell me like their parents show them love by giving them fruit, cutting fruit, and they give it to them, right? Or they say like, oh, I like this, and then they end up with like boxes of it in their house. Their parents bring it. But their parents have never told you like, oh, I'm proud of you, I love you. They never say it, right? But they do it other ways, right? Like, I don't know if you ever read like the 5 love languages or stuff like that. It's kind of like, popular pop psychology, but there's something to it, right? So when we feel too much resistance, maybe there's another way, right? Not everyone likes chile picoso, right? Like, that's not everyone's thing. Not every Latino likes that. Only us Mexicans for the most part. So we can, maybe give some sweet, maybe some sour, according to their own taste, right? So we have to kind of be aware of it, and maybe your love for your father can be expressed in different ways. And it's just about experimenting and see what works both for you and him together. In the back, and then here, and then we'll have to finish.
You said something about when you have a conflict or something being confrontational, that you practice self-silence. Is that what it is? I'm not sure if I understood that properly. So if someone, like if you're free and someone acts aggressively towards you or says something, what do you do? How do you do that?
My first natural reaction, because it's kind of programmed into me now, I don't do it consciously, is to be joyful. Like today, when that person went out of their way and they said those things, I was like, oh, okay, have a good day. I didn't think it in my head, okay, now I'm going to say, okay, have a good day, and I'm going to look happy to disarm them. No, I have just trained myself to be joyful.
How do you do that?
You have to practice joy every day. So now one way that's very popular, if you want to do it in a very easy way, very accessible way, is to practice gratitude. There's so much information about gratitude. That's one way. Through compassion, through loving kindness, right? There's so many ways that we can practice to be more joyful. So for me, that's one way. Another way is to just remain quiet. That I do if I feel like I'm going near my threshold. Right? Once I'm like, oh, this is too much for me now. Now it's just time to be patient and just watch. There's nothing I can really do. Wait for it to pass, and then work it out. I'll talk to another monk. I'll talk to someone who can help me and try to figure it out later, because at that point, I don't have the resources. But what we shouldn't do is get into like a tit for tat, right? Like point, like you attack me, I attack you now, because it can go here, it can go really far. Just last year, my little sister, who's 22 now, got into like a honking dispute with another driver. They got to the red light, they pulled a gun on her. Yeah, so we don't want to get into that. It can go to that extreme, right? So train yourself to be joyful, because it'll throw people off. Someone's expecting for you to be either scared or to be angry. And if you show something else, like love, joy, compassion, they're not ready for that, right? You pulled out like some other secret technique punch that they weren't ready for, right? And that person today just kept driving off. They didn't do anything after that. And most of the time that works for me. But if you can't, just be quiet, and kind of let it pass. Last one, and then we'll finish. Yeah. Yes, Dhamma.
So I was remembering that something you guys taught us when we're having like a immediate marketing decision about whether we should do something or not, and it was is it good for me? Is it good for others? Is it good for me?
Yes. So there's like these 6 categories, right? Things that we need to be aware of. Is it detrimental to me? Is it detrimental to others? Is it detrimental to all, right? Because something might hurt only me, but not hurt someone else. Something might hurt others, but not hurt me. And there's some things that might hurt everyone, me and others. It's completely bad, right? Those things should be avoided. But there's things that are good for me, but may not be good for others. Things that are good for others, but may not be good for me. And there's things that are good for everyone, for others, right? So we need to go through this kind of formula, right? Because the first 3 are about not causing harm. You have to kind of like take a Buddhist Hippocratic oath like a doctor. First, do no harm. Maybe you can't do good. Maybe you can't show a lot of loving kindness when you see suffering or people are treating you very bad. But one thing that you can do is no harm. Don't hurt anyone. And so you can do these reflections, right? Does it hurt me? Does it hurt others? Does it hurt all? Does it benefit me? Does it benefit others? Does it benefit all? This is the way the Buddha told us to think about things in our head, before we speak, and before we act in our body. Yes. Okay, thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Bhante, for giving me extra time.
Thank you. Thank you very well. Thank you for everybody. We're going to finish soon. We're going to start the page 4 and page 8. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranam gacchami. Dhammang saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. When ye du công đức phổ cập tư nha thế na đần từ trong sang nghe gai còn hai phà đạo. When ye từ con đức phổ cập tư nha thế na đần từ trong sang nghe gai cùng thái phà đạo. When ye từ con đức phổ cập tư nha thế Thank you again, everyone. Hope to see you again soon. Maybe next year, we'll see you soon.
You can go to Sri Lanka or Vietnam to get the country.
Okay. All right, thank you again for everybody. We have tea and cookies. And a couple of announcements. Next Sunday, Vishal is going to do a Dhamma talk. I think that's already your announcement. Thank you again, and we have tea and cookies. By the power of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, you all be well and happy.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.